apparently Israel's main target in Gaza is a hospital after all. So remember when there was the whole fiasco about the failed rocket that may or may not have hit a hospital that was may or may not have been a failed rocket. We never really got to the bottom of what actually happened there. There was a lot of conflicting reports. What we do know is that the evidence that Israel put forward of a failed rocket was debunked by numerous independent experts. They viewed the video. They were able to geolocate where this rocket came from. They said that rocket came from Israel. It failed, but it didn't fail over the hospital. So that wasn't it. It had nothing to do with the hospital. But there's a lot of questions about what actually happened, who bombed the hospital that killed all of the people earlier on in the conflict. And a lot of the screaming was from those who were defending Israel was how they would never target a hospital. Why would you even think that? You were nuts for even believing that they would target a hospital. You fell for it. You fell for Hamas propaganda is what they claimed. Well, now it is confirmed. Israel is targeting hospitals. They are saying it flat out. They're, of course, giving their excuses. But according to numerous news outlets who are on the ground there and who've been talking directly to the IDF, they say that their main military target in Gaza right now is a hospital. That's their main chief military target. Here's the Reuters article. Israeli tanks outside Gaza hospital. Biden hopes for less intrusive action. This title has changed a couple of times throughout the day, by the way. It started off more dire, saying that this was their chief target, but it says this in the article. Israeli tanks took up position at the gates of Gaza City's main hospital on Monday, the chief target in Israel's battle to seize control of the northern half of the Gaza Strip, and where medics said patients, including newborns, were dying for lack of fuel. Gaza Health Ministry spokesperson who was inside Al-Shifa hospital. So there's several hospitals that are being targeted. Al-Shifa is the largest hospital in Gaza. Al-Quds is another large hospital that's being targeted, and there's other smaller hospitals being targeted. But so it's not just one hospital, it's many hospitals that are targeted. But right now, they've got their sights set on a couple of the biggest ones, actually, the biggest ones, so not small ones. So the Gaza Health Ministry spokesperson who was inside Al-Shifa hospital said 32 patients had died in the last 3 days, including 3 newborn babies as a result of the siege of the hospital and lack of power. At least 650 patients were still inside, desperate to be evacuated to another medical facility. Israel says the hospital sits atop tunnels, housing a headquarters for Hamas fighters using patients as shields, which Hamas denies. We're going to keep reading this article and another one from BBC, but we will play the video that IDF gave. And what they claim, again, whatever they claim, you have to scrutinize because it's often found to be a lie. And this is what's absurd. It's as if they don't realize people have the internet or people can see what they're showing and can debunk it very quickly and very rapidly. And so much of what Israel has come out with, and this is what's so difficult about this conflict, is that many people would love to be able to side with Israel. Many people would love to believe that the atrocities and the mass amount of civilian casualties really are truly just unfortunate, but what has to happen because Hamas is really truly using these people as human shields. The problem is that when the IDF starts showing evidence, the evidence is not actual evidence. So the video we're going to show you, when they claim it's a tunnel, it's clearly an elevator shaft. I mean, it's just, they'll say, oh, believe us because we're telling you this is what it is. Just believe us. We told you it's a failed rocket. Here's the video of the failed rocket. Not realizing a bunch of experts, even experts who would typically be on the side of Israel, come out and saying, well, actually, we geolocated that thing and that's not the rocket. That rocket came from Israel. If it failed and it didn't even hit the hospital. I mean, just everything that they've said at this point, almost everything. I don't want to say everything because I'm sure they've said some things that are true, but a lot of what they've said has been debunked, and we're going to debunk some again tonight. They go on to say the tanks, this is from a surgeon inside the hospital saying, the tanks are in front of the hospital. We are under full blockade. It is a totally civilian area. Only hospital patients, doctors, and other civilians staying in the hospital. Someone should stop this. They bombed the water tanks. They bombed the water wells. They bombed the oxygen pump as well. They bombed everything in the hospital, so we are hardly surviving. And why would you bomb the water and the oxygen for hospital patients? You look, even if Hamas is headquartered underneath the hospital, even if there are tunnels underneath there and a bunch of weapons, what is the point of bombing the water and the oxygen for the civilian patients that you know are inside that hospital needing the hospital services? What would be the point of that? BBC goes on to also report on this, and they've said that the World Health Organization says, first of all, their headline, a little bit more accurate here, Gaza hospitals caught on front line of Israel-Hamas war. The World Health Organization says 36 health facilities, including 22 hospitals, have been damaged since the war began, and only a handful are now still operational. The WHO said on Sunday that Al-Shifa in Gaza City, the territory's largest with 700 beds, had ceased to function and that the situation inside was dire and perilous. Israel says Hamas fighters operate in tunnels underneath the hospital, a claim which Hamas denies. The other thing is Israel's now on the ground. It's one thing when prior to Israel actually being on the ground and they were surrounding Gaza, but they weren't in Gaza. And so they would drop bombs and they'd say, well, we've got to collapse the tunnels. They're now on the ground. They're surrounding the hospital. They could smoke them out. I mean, don't tell me you can't smoke them out of those tunnels in a variety of different ways. Whether you use smoke, whether you use water, whether, of course, no one's going to go into the tunnels. I don't think any soldiers, I don't think that would ever be something that anybody, that would be a good military strategy is to go enter the tunnels, but they could certainly do other things. They could block off the entrances. I mean, they know where these tunnels are and they're there on the ground now. So why do you have to bomb the water tanks that are on top of the building? Those water tanks are not sitting on the ground. The water tanks in Palestine are on top of the buildings. They put them on top so that the water can run down through the building. There's no need to bomb the water tanks on top of the building. So the WHO director said constant gunfire and bombings in the area have exacerbated the already critical circumstances. Multiple reports from inside said there's no food, no fuel to run generators. Solar energy is being used to power a few critical systems until they get bombed. There have been communication blackouts. The Doctors Without Borders charity was unable to contact its members inside Gaza over the weekend. Attempts by BBC to contact workers have also been unsuccessful. Staff said that 3 of the 39 infants in their care died over the weekend due to there being no incubators. Surviving babies were at serious risk of death, according to the doctors. I want to point this out that online on social media, there was a lot of claims that 39 babies had died because they couldn't be in the incubators because of Israel. It was very much similar to the 40 beheaded babies claim. This was maybe it was rooted in some sort of truth. They got the number from somewhere. Maybe it was 40 babies were, I'm not 100% sure where that one came from, but the 39 babies it was circulating online that they had died. They haven't died. They're close to death. 3 of them have died. They have been taken out of the incubators. The doctors have put the babies all next to one another in order to keep them warm, to try to have them feed off of each other's body heat because they can no longer be in the incubators. The incubators aren't any good for them. 3 of them have died. And the others are, the other 36 are barely surviving, and they could potentially die if they don't get evacuated out of there. Israel says it knows with certainty. So this is where we're going to get into some of the claims, okay? Because Israel says it knows with certainty that there's a Hamas command center beneath Shifa. And they gave us this video. This is from Netanyahu. He tweeted this video out. His tweet says, Hamas ISIS is sick. So he's claiming that for one, Hamas is ISIS. By the way, Hamas fights ISIS inside of Gaza, but Hamas regularly goes after other terrorist cells inside of Gaza. But says Hamas ISIS is sick. They turn hospitals into headquarters for their terror. We just released intelligence proving it. Here's the video. And then watch this video. I mean, look at this. This is the proof. This is the type of stuff that people look at and they say, are you kidding me? I mean, how stupid do you think people are? You're showing us drawings. This is like a cartoon, illustrations. So now you're showing us the satellite imagery of Shifa Hospital. Okay, I see a hospital. I don't see any tunnels. I don't see any Hamas. Okay, there's the layout of the hospital. Oh, you're telling me in the red that there's a Hamas underground complex there without any evidence other, just telling me that's where they are. Okay, you could put these, you could say these are anywhere. I mean, you could claim these are in my house for all this shows. So they're saying, oh, look at, this is the evidence. This is what Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, brings out as evidence. I mean, this is ridiculous. Anybody could make this up. Anybody could say, well, oh, geez, the terrorist cells are just everywhere. I mean, how many, if this is the standard of proof, how many people in America would love to use this as a standard of proof? Think about all of the leftists over the last, or the liberals over the last, since 2016, who would love to be able to say, we swear there are MAGA bunkers. There are MAGA bunkers all over the United States. We have proof. Here's the proof. And they do 3D drawings and they put red outlines on Google Maps and they tell you this is where the MAGA bunkers are. We have to go after them. We have to stop the terrorists. I mean, if this is the standard of evidence, we are in trouble because many people are going to be using it from here on out. If we believe this crap, we can't believe this and we can't allow our government to believe it because they will use this against us. So even if you are watching this and you are super ultra pro-Israel, you cannot be okay with that as a standard of evidence because it will be used against you at some point. So that is one of the hospitals. That's Al-Shifa. Now Al-Quds, which is the second largest hospital in the northern Gaza Strip. Al-Shifa is the largest hospital in the whole area. Al-Quds, the BBC reports that fighting also took place Monday at a second major hospital in northern Gaza, Al-Quds, which has stopped functioning. So this hospital is no longer functioning at all. The other hospital, Shifa, is on its last leg. Al-Quds is done. It's done. The Palestinian Red Crescent said the hospital was surrounded by heavy gunfire and a convoy sent to evacuate patients and staff had been unable to reach it. Israel says it has killed approximately 21 terrorists at Al-Quds in return fire after fighters shot from the hospital entrance, and it released footage it said showed a group of men at the hospital gate, one of whom appeared to be carrying a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. So let's watch this video. So they're claiming that this is the hospital entrance and that, which I believe it is. And here's a guy going in. Now, at this point, so they're saying, see, this is what they're trying to tell us with this. Because I believe that looks genuine to me. That looks like a guy with a grenade launcher, I'm sure, going into that hospital. What we know, though, is that hospital is no longer functioning and it has been mostly evacuated. There are still people trying to get out of that hospital. But, they're using this and saying, well, this is why we have to target the hospitals. Well, they already targeted this hospital. So this hospital's already gone down. So if you are Hamas and you're trying to fight the IDF, you're going to go where the IDF goes. The IDF says, we're going where Hamas goes. Hamas would say, we're going where the IDF goes. So if the IDF starts showing up at hospitals and starting shelling hospitals, well, Hamas, their whole reason for being is what they claim is that they are protecting the Palestinian citizens, that they're essentially their military to protect them. Well, what good is your military if they aren't going to protect you, right? So if that is what they're truly claiming to be, then wouldn't they need to show up to the hospital to protect the people if the IDF is there shelling the hospital? It goes both ways, right? So when IDF says, well, Hamas is there, so that's why we're there. And then Hamas can say, well, IDF is there, and that's why we're there. I mean, who knows who showed up first? But they shouldn't, none of them should be at the hospital. They all need to be getting away from the hospital. And even if Hamas is at the hospital, Israel, the IDF could back away from the hospital, surround it and wait and flush those guys out in some other way. Come up with a creative way to flush them out. You don't need to actually bomb and shell the hospital. There's plenty of ways to do this. And don't sit there and try to say, no, there is no way. What would you do? The Hamas fighters are in there. Do we have this standard for the FBI or the police? If the bad guys, if terrorists came to America and took over a hospital, do we say that it's okay for the military, for the National Guard to go and bomb the hospital, or the FBI to bomb the hospital, or the police to just indiscriminately shoot at the hospital, regardless of all the civilians inside? Do we say that that is an okay standard? We don't actually operate on that standard for anything other than war. It's a very interesting mentality. Something about war makes it suddenly okay for civilians to die. We don't have this mentality for any other type of chasing bad guys. We could be chasing terrorists inside the United States. We don't believe it's okay to kill civilians in the process. We could be chasing a serial killer who has committed horrific crimes against numerous people, and we still don't think it's okay to kill civilians to get to them. But when it comes to warfare, something happens and a piece of humanity gets turned off, and we kind of feel like, well, but it's war, so it's okay. Here's another instance that another hospital that is being shelled, the Rantisi Specialized Hospital for Children and the nearby Al-Nasser Hospital in the northern Gaza city were evacuated on Friday, save for a handful of patients and staff. The IDF released to the BBC details of phone conversations between an official at Rantisi and a senior officer in the IDF in which they discussed arrangements to get ambulances to evacuate patients. So the IDF gave this telephone call to the BBC and said, see what we're doing. We are trying to evacuate the civilians. Here's our evidence. We're talking to a Rantisi senior officer, a Rantisi official. And what they said was go outside with your hands up and make sure you're waving white flags so we know that you're the civilians, and we will get you to safety. So he said, according to the call, he twice told the hospital official to make sure civilians were carrying something white to show they were not combatants. They will go out, quote, the hospital official said, they will all go out with their hands in the air. Perfect, said the Israeli. And then watch this video. This is what happened.
حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل اللهم أرنا فيهم عجائب قدرتك يا رب يا رب تلطف فينا يا رب حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل يا رب لطفك يا رب فينا.
So there they were trying to evacuate. They were holding their hands up in the air. They were waving the white flag, and they ended up getting shot at. Now, the video has been verified by BBC. They do say they verified the location, that is that hospital, that is the group of people that was discussed, but they cannot verify who was shooting at them. Israel says, well, Hamas does it. Hamas shoots at the people in order to keep them inside of the hospitals. But the people that are working at the hospitals say that's not true. It's actually the IDF. They're shelling at us. They're targeting us. They're shelling, and they say it's the IDF. So you could trust the IDF and them saying, no, it's Hamas doing it. Or you could trust the people, the civilians who are waving those white flags, the people who are not Hamas, the men, the women, the children who are just trying to get to safety, and they're saying it's the IDF. And they're trusting the IDF. They did what the IDF said. They are trusting the IDF, and they are doing what they're told. And they're trying to get to safety, and yet they're being shot at, and they're kept inside of this hospital. Why would that be done? Well, probably miscommunication. Who knows? One official says, yeah, come out with your hands up and wave the white flag, and others don't get the message, and they just start shooting. I don't know what the battlefield is like there right now with the IDF, but I would imagine there's clearly a lack of communication. I say that because I don't want to believe the other option. I don't want to believe the alternative, which is that monsters are just shooting at these people. I just would rather believe that it's miscommunication, and that's what I would think is most likely.